Welcome to the Teacher Experience GMetrix webinar. Before we get started, I again want to thank you all for joining me. I also want to point out a few things. Notice that in the chat, there is a chat where it has webinar host and it has questions. Please direct any questions that you have to the questions chat. That way we can get them answered in as timely a manner as possible. I also want to remind you to check your spam folder for the GMetrix newsletter. That newsletter is going to have great information on what's coming up with GMetrix and how to stay connected and the links for our upcoming webinars. Lastly, I want to remind you about the support.gmetrix.net. This is where you can go and you can access help and you can access our knowledge base for additional information and guides on how to utilize GMetrix. We do have gmetrix.com, so you can see the latest in products and updates that we have. We also have gmetrix.net, which is our student portal, and this is where your students will go in order to take their practice exams. And we have manage.gmetrix.net. This is our admin portal, and this is where we'll be focused on today. Additionally, to stay up to date and stay connected with us, you have our Facebook and our LinkedIn accounts. I do encourage you to go and follow those. They will have our latest and greatest information, our updates, as well as our webinar information. I will go ahead and get started with our webinar. Welcome to the Teacher Experience. We will start with an introduction, and then we will navigate to our admin panel. We will look up access codes, our student lookup, groups, reports, support, and feedback. This webinar is meant to give you insight into the teacher experience and to items available within our admin panel for the teacher and to utilize within the classroom. There will be additional webinars that will focus on each of these items individually and give more in-depth information. The first thing that we will do is navigate to manage.gmetrix.net. This will be our admin portal, and you will use your administrator login to log in here. You're going to enter your user ID and then your password, and you're going to choose to sign in. Once signed in, I do want to point out that we do have our weekly GMetrix webinar calendar here. On this calendar is where you can utilize the links to see what is coming next for our webinars. We do have them posted through November, and you can use them to sign up for our webinars. Another item that I want to point out, if you go and you go to My Account and you go to Early Access, you can choose to opt in so that you can have access to early access features. You can choose opt-in or you can choose all. All will default the early access features and show the opt-out option, where opt-in will show the opt-in option. Once you choose your option, you choose save, and you can go back to the home page. And I do want to show you the difference between the early access feature. This is the standard dashboard that you see when you log into the admin portal. It has where you can create access codes, custom tests, have quick reports. It has resources and the calendar. And this is the early opt-in feature, where you can see your students' you can kind of customize this, and you can see your students' recent tests completed. You can also see their course progress report. You can go and configure the dashboard and add tiles for different reporting, promotions, and miscellaneous items. So that's going to be your opt-in feature. The items that the teachers will need to utilize to create their courses, you're going to have to start with access codes. Access codes are the codes that you're going to give your students in order for them to access the assignments within GMetrix. You can create the access codes for the test as well as the Learn Key items. When you click on the access code option here, you will see it will default to your access to your active codes. You will be able to see the identifier and who created it, when it was created, and the number of codes. Again, I want to let you know that when you are creating codes, I do advise that you create more codes than the students that you actually have. That way, when students come into your class, you don't have to create a new code. You can just go and choose details on a current code and take the code and give it to the student. The great thing is that the codes are redeemed when are taken out of your inventory when they are redeemed within the student panel, not when they are created. So that's a great thing right here and will help you in the future. If you have a lot of codes here and you want to narrow it down to codes that you have created so that you can distribute to your students, you can narrow it down by product and determine which product it is that you'd like to see a code for, or you can narrow it down by who created the code. So I'm going to go back here to all products, and then I'm going to look for the codes created by John. So now I can see the codes created by John, and I can utilize these codes if those are the ones that I'd like for my class. Another great feature here is our reporting and our test tracking. When you're looking at test tracking, you're going to make sure that you change the start date, because otherwise it does default for today's date. So you want to make sure that you change the start date, and you might want to go back to the beginning of school. And then your test status, you determine if you want to look at finished or saved tests. You may also choose a product, or you can have all of the products that you have created the access code for. Another thing you can do is just grab the access code from access codes and put it here, and then you'll choose search. This will allow you to see all of your finished tests since August the 1st. You'll be able to see all of your students' finished tests since August the 1st. And with these tests, you will be able to see what test it was, the student's name, their username, when they finished it, their mode, and their score. Now, if you're having trouble, I don't understand why this student got a 0, received a 0 on this, you choose the I for information, and it will come up. Looking at this, I would say that the student clicked complete on the test, but did not actually complete the test. And again, I see 1 minute and 21 seconds was spent on the test. So very likely that they click complete. Another thing that I want to show you is that with every test, this, regardless of what the student scored, we do give an encouraging word for the student. So even though they failed here, we tell them, don't give up. We do try to encourage the students as they go along. So you can see that information. You also have the option to create reports. When you're creating reports, you can do student tests, you can do general product reports, which is very close to what you're looking at in test tracking. You can do course reports. These are going to be for your Learn Keys. You can do book reports and see the usage of the books that the students have done. One of the reports that we will be utilizing a great deal is going to be our objectives breakdown. The objectives breakdown does break down where your class is, as well as your individual students, by the objectives. And again, the objectives do align with the test. When you get the objectives breakdown or any of your students' reports here, even the study guide, I do suggest that you utilize custom tests. Custom tests allow you to create a test based on where your students need remediation or where your students need assistance or more in-depth learning at. You can utilize that, or you can create a custom test based on the objectives that you're working on in your class at the current time. These custom tests can be deployed to your students as individual assignments under your current access code, and the students can complete them. And you can choose whether or not they do training or testing mode with them. This is great when it comes to chunking for your students, so that instead of giving them a wide variety of information, a wide variety of questions to focus on, you can narrow it down to a specific set of information. You also have the option to create groups when it comes to your students. You can create student groups if you have students that are achieving quicker than others and you want to put them in a group and give them a different access code or give them access to more advanced curriculum. You do have the option to create groups with your students. You also have the option to create groups if you have multiple classes or at your district, at your school, and you just want to see your students or specific information for your students quickly, you can create a group and put your students within that group. One of the other options we have is students. You are able to search your students by name. And to look up students, a great thing that you're doing here that this is used for is to determine your students, maybe your students forgot their username or password. You can look up the student's email, their username, and you can reset the student's password. When you choose to reset the student's password, you will get an option here to reset or to cancel. And you can reset the student's password here on screen, or you can have it sent to them. Most institutions do not allow the student to receive email from outside that specific school district. So I would suggest that you go ahead and you reset it on screen. You also have the option to see details on that student. You can see the information on the student. You can see the access codes that they have used. You can see the remaining uses on those access codes. And you can add information about the student if you'd like, or you can update information about the student. You also have the option to log in as a student. Again, I want to thank you for joining me here at the Teacher Experience webinar. Again, this is an overview of things that the teacher will be utilizing within their classroom. And there will be more webinars with in-depth information where you will learn specifically how to create an access code and groups and utilize the reports. I do, again, encourage you to go ahead and look at our GMetrix webinar calendar so that you can see the upcoming webinars. Again, they are posted through November. And I do also encourage you to view our webinar calendar, to view our social media, our Facebook page, as well as our LinkedIn to gain more information on the upcoming webinars. I will go ahead and post the links in the chat for the websites as well as our Facebook and our social media. Thank you again for joining me.